The deafening roar of gunfire echoed through the shattered streets of Al-Mansur, a city crumbled by years of relentless warfare. Amid the crumbling facades and burning vehicles, a small compound stood stubbornly defiant, its walls scarred by bullets and mortar blasts. Inside, 8 Navy SEALs from Team Shadow found themselves trapped, encircled by an enemy force swelling in numbers and ferocity. Tension simmered beneath the surface, each man's breath shallow, eyes darting to every shadow. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell sat crouched behind an overturned table, her heartbeat pounding louder than the distant explosions. Sweat beaded on her forehead, mingling with the grime of the battlefield. Around her, the seasoned SEALs moved with practiced precision, their weapons sweeping every angle. But to them, Sarah was an anomaly, a liability. Her uniform felt heavier on her shoulders than the armor she wore, not because of the gear, but because of the silent judgment hanging in the stale air. Commander Davis, a grizzled veteran with a scar tracing the length of his jaw, paced near the communication console, frustration etched deep into his features. "This is bad. Real bad," he muttered, eyes flickering to the flickering screen showing the enemy's tightening grip. "We're pinned down, no resupply, no backup. And we can't afford any mistakes." His gaze landed on Sarah, who was nervously adjusting the strap of her rifle. "Lieutenant Mitchell," he said sharply, "I hope you're ready to pull your weight. This isn't a desk job." Sarah swallowed hard. She knew the skepticism, the barely concealed disdain from the men who had fought side by side for years. They saw her as an outsider, the intelligence analyst with a history in competitive shooting but no real combat experience. Her precision on a range meant little when bullets were flying and lives hung in the balance. Corporal Jenkins, one of the team's snipers, leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smirking as he whispered to his buddy. "She's gonna slow us down. This ain't a video game." His words cut sharper than any bullet. Sarah's fingers tightened around her rifle, the cold metal grounding her. She refused to let their doubts define her. Outside, the enemy's gunfire grew louder, punctuated by the staccato of automatic weapons and the distant thud of rocket-propelled grenades. The compound's defenses were faltering. "Status report." Commander Davis barked, scanning his team. "Comms are down. The jammer's active." "We're blind out there," Sergeant Ramirez replied, voice grim. "Enemies closing in from the east and west. Casualties mounting." The room's atmosphere thickened with urgency. The SEALs exchanged glances, each man acutely aware that their window to escape or hold was narrowing. In the chaos, Sarah felt a flicker of something she hadn't anticipated, a sense of purpose. Despite the layers of mistrust, she was here, now. And she could not be ignored. She scanned the perimeter through the cracked window, eyes narrowing beneath her helmet. Between the smoke and debris, she spotted a narrow ledge atop a nearby ruin, a vantage point overlooked by their foes. It was risky, exposed. But it might offer the angle needed to disrupt the siege. "Commander," Sarah called out, stepping forward despite the wary looks. "There's a position on the east flank. If I can get there, I might be able to take a shot that could buy us time." Davis's eyes flickered with skepticism. "That's a long shot, Lieutenant. And you're not exactly one of us." "I know that," Sarah said steadily. "But I'm the best shot here. I can do it." The room fell silent, the weight of the moment settling like dust in the air. The men glanced at one another, some shaking their heads, others biting their lips. They had no choice. "Fine," Davis relented, voice tight. "But you move fast and stay low. We can't afford to lose you." Sarah nodded, hard hammering as she slung her rifle tighter. She moved with deliberate caution, weaving through the ruins, every step measured against the cacophony of war. The compound faded behind her, replaced by the jagged skyline of broken buildings and burning wreckage. As she approached the ruin, the sounds of battle throbbed in her ears, shouts, gunfire, the distant hum of drones overhead. She climbed cautiously, each movement calculated to minimize noise and exposure. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows that both concealed and betrayed her presence. Reaching the narrow ledge, Sarah settled into position, her breath steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She scanned the enemy lines, noting their formations, movements, and the commander directing their assault, a man coordinating the siege with ruthless efficiency. Her training kicked in, the hours spent honing her marksmanship flashing through her mind. She adjusted her scope, factoring in distance, wind, and elevation. The world narrowed to a pinprick of focus. Back at the compound, the SEALs held their positions, the tension palpable. Inside, Jenkins whispered harshly, "Let's see if she can actually make that shot." Sarah's finger hovered over the trigger, steady and unwavering. Around her, the city seemed to hold its breath. One shot, one chance. The crack of a rifle shot shattered the silence, a single bullet slicing through the chaos. The enemy commander collapsed, confusion rippling through their ranks as their coordinated assault faltered. Shouts of disarray replaced the earlier cacophony. Inside the compound, the SEALs exchanged stunned looks. Commander Davis's eyes widened. Did she just? Sarah exhaled slowly, already scanning for the next target, her heartbeat syncing with the shattered rhythm of the battle. In that moment, the line between liability and asset blurred, and Sarah Mitchell stepped into the crucible of combat, her shot not just breaking the siege, but breaking the chains of doubt that had bound her from the start. The acrid scent of gunpowder still lingered in the air when the firefight momentarily subsided, but inside the cramped confines of the compound, the atmosphere remained thick with tension. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell lowered her rifle, her hands steady despite the pounding adrenaline. Around her, the eyes that had once regarded her with thinly veiled skepticism now flickered with something closer to grudging respect, though no one spoke it aloud. Commander Davis wiped the grime from his forehead, the lines of fatigue etched deeper into his face. "How did you learn to shoot like that?" he asked, the question more curious than accusatory. The room, for once, fell silent as the men waited for her answer. Sarah hesitated, her gaze drifting to the cracked window where smoke blurred the horizon. Before this, she began softly, "I was a competitive marksman. National level, actually. Spent years training for precision and discipline." Her voice carried a quiet pride that was unfamiliar to the hardened operators around her. "But I never really saw combat, never on the front lines. My role was always intelligence, analysis, support." Corporal Jenkins scoffed, shaking his head. "Marksman, analyst. Doesn't exactly scream battlefield ready, does it?" The words stung, but Sarah held her ground. "I know what it looks like," she said steadily. "And I get that this is a different game. But precision is precision. Discipline is discipline. The fundamentals don't change." The room remained silent, the tension thickening as the SEALs processed the revelation. Sergeant Ramirez, usually taciturn, nodded slowly. "I've seen analysts before, most don't last a week out here. They get overwhelmed, make mistakes. But you kept your head." Sarah's eyes met his, understanding the grudging acknowledgement beneath his words. "I've spent years studying maps, enemy movements, ballistics. I'm used to high pressure. It's just different when you're the one holding the trigger." Jenkins folded his arms, still skeptical. "No combat experience though. You sure you can handle this? This isn't a competition or a range. This is real life." Her jaw tightened, the familiar sting of doubt fueling her resolve. "I don't just know how to shoot. I've trained mentally, too. Competitive shooting demands focus, calm under pressure, managing fear. That's what keeps the bullet on target, not just the skill." The men exchanged glances, their skepticism slowly giving way to reluctant curiosity. The battle outside raged, but within the compound, a different kind of battle was unfolding, a battle for trust, for acceptance. Sarah's mind drifted briefly to her past, the endless hours at the range, the quiet intensity of training, the solitary victories and crushing defeats. The tournaments where every split second counted, where the difference between first and second was measured in millimeters. The day she left the sport wasn't because of lack of skill, but because of a tragedy that had shattered her world, a loss she still carried silently. She pushed the memories aside, focusing on the present. "Look," she said, voice firmer now, I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here to add something different. To help you survive. Commander Davis nodded slowly, the weight of command pressing down on him. You're an analyst by trade, and a marksman by training. But today you became part of this team. That means you pull your weight. No exceptions. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. I understand. The room shifted, the walls seeming to close in as the team prepared for the next wave. But something had changed. The subtle lines of division began to blur, replaced by a fragile thread of unity. In the dim light, Jenkins approached her, his expression unreadable. You ever been in a real firefight before? She shook her head. Not like this. He nodded, almost imperceptibly. Neither had I, once. Doesn't mean you can't learn. A faint, almost imperceptible smile flickered across Sarah's lips. It was the first sign of acceptance, a quiet acknowledgement between warriors. As the team regrouped, Sarah's thoughts raced. She analyzed the enemy's tactics, recalling patterns she had studied on satellite images, matching them with the chaos outside. The siege had been months in the making, a meticulously planned operation by a faction hell-bent on control. Her knowledge of their movements was more than theoretical, it was a lifeline. She moved among the SEALs, offering insights quietly, suggesting vantage points, calculating trajectories. Some listened, others remained guarded. But the walls of doubt were cracking. Ramirez pulled her aside briefly, his voice low. You ever think about going back? To the sport, I mean. Sarah's eyes darkened. Sometimes. Before today, it felt like a different life. Like something I lost. He nodded, understanding more than he said. You've got more fight in you than you think. The hours stretched thin, the compound's defenses battered but holding. Sarah found herself caught between two worlds, the analytical mind that dissected every movement, and the shooter whose instincts sharpened with every heartbeat. In quiet moments, she replayed the shots she'd taken, each one a testament to years of discipline. The calm that had eluded her in the opening moments of the siege now settled like a second skin. Precision was not just about the bullet, but about control, over fear, over doubt, over the chaos threatening to consume them all. Meanwhile, the SEALs began to see her in a new light. Lieutenant Harris, a gruff man with a reputation for toughness, approached her with a nod. Good shot earlier. Saved our asses. Sarah nodded, the words unexpected but welcome. Thanks. The small victories piled up, suggestions she made that improved their defensive positions, her steady hand in moments of panic. Slowly, the team's posture shifted from wary tolerance to cautious reliance. Yet beneath the surface, Sarah wrestled with her own insecurities. The memory of the tragedy that had driven her from competitive shooting, her brother's death during a training accident, haunted her still. It was a wound she concealed behind layers of professionalism and quiet determination. Her journey from analyst to frontline shooter was not just about proving others wrong, it was a path toward reclaiming herself, piece by piece. As night fell over the besieged city, the compound's faint glow was a beacon in the darkness. The SEALs gathered what strength they had left, their trust in Sarah fragile but growing. In the shadows, Sarah adjusted her rifle once more, eyes scanning for the next opportunity to tip the scales. The battlefield was unforgiving, but for the first time since the siege began, she felt a quiet certainty. She was no longer just the analyst, the outsider. She was part of the team. And she was ready. The compound was a cauldron of noise and tension, the aftershocks of Sarah's shot still rippling through the battered team. Outside, the enemy forces scrambled, their coordinated assault thrown into disarray by the sudden loss of their commander. The SEALs used the brief lull to regroup, but the siege pressed on relentlessly. Communications remained jammed, and the team's options were shrinking fast. Inside the dimly lit command room, Commander Davis's voice was terse as he barked orders. We've lost contact with HQ. No reinforcements are coming anytime soon. We need to hold our ground or find another way out. Sarah stood near the map table, eyes scanning the enemy positions she'd memorized during the battle. Her mind raced, calculating odds and trajectories, but the weight of responsibility pressed down hard. She was no longer just an observer, now she had to act decisively. The SEALs gathered around, their faces etched with exhaustion and doubt. Lieutenant Harris glanced at Sarah, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "What's the plan, Lieutenant?" Sarah swallowed, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "There's a narrow alley on the north side, partially covered by debris and overlooked by enemy patrols. If I can take out a couple of key targets from there, we might create a corridor for an escape, or at least buy time for reinforcements." Murmurs of skepticism rippled through the group. Sergeant Ramirez frowned. "That's a suicide run. You're not exactly trained for frontline combat." Sarah met his gaze without wavering. "I'm aware of the risks. But if we stay here, we're dead anyway." Commander Davis studied her for a long moment before nodding. "You're right. We don't have many options left. But you move fast and stay low. We cover you." The plan was set. Sarah prepared her gear, checking her rifle and ammunition. She could feel the eyes of the team on her, a mixture of hope and doubt. The weight of their trust was heavy, but it galvanized her. She slipped out of the command room, moving through the labyrinth of corridors with practiced stealth. The compound was a maze of shattered walls and rubble, each step a calculated risk. Outside, the distant sounds of gunfire and explosions punctuated the night air. As she reached the northern alley, Sarah paused, scanning the area through her scope. The enemy patrols were positioned in predictable patterns, their complacency a small mercy in the chaos. She took a deep breath, recalling the countless hours of training that had prepared her for this moment. Her finger hovered over the trigger. She calculated wind speed, distance, and movement, the familiar rituals grounding her amidst the turmoil. With a steady exhale, she squeezed the trigger, the rifle's crack sharp and precise. The first target, a guard near a makeshift barricade, collapsed silently. The second shot took down a sentry posted on a rooftop. Confusion rippled through the enemy ranks as their numbers thinned unexpectedly. Sarah moved swiftly, repositioning herself after each shot to avoid detection. The alley was narrow, littered with debris that both concealed and threatened to betray her presence. Every heartbeat was measured, every breath controlled. Inside the compound, the SEALs held the line, their hope tethered to Sarah's deadly accuracy. Lieutenant Harris muttered a prayer under his breath, eyes flicking anxiously toward the crumbling wall that separated them from the alley. As Sarah prepared for her third shot, a sudden movement caught her eye, a squad of enemy fighters advancing faster than anticipated. The situation shifted instantly from calculated risk to desperate necessity. She fired again, taking down 2 attackers, but the remaining enemy closed in. Her cover was blown. A hail of bullets erupted, and Sarah dove behind a crumbled pillar, the impact shaking the ground beside her. Her heart pounded, adrenaline surging as she assessed her options. She was alone, exposed, and the enemy was closing in. Back in the compound, the SEALs heard the gunfire erupt and the sharp crack of rifles. Commander Davis cursed under his breath. "She's out there alone. We need to move." Lieutenant Harris grabbed his radio, calling for a coordinated maneuver. "We're moving to support Mitchell. Hold your positions until we get her back." Sarah weighed her choices. Retreat was impossible without cover, and advancing meant stepping into the enemy's line of fire. She gritted her teeth and decided to press forward, relying on her training and instincts. She fired methodically, each shot deliberate and measured, thinning the enemy ranks as she moved toward a partially collapsed building that offered better concealment. The enemy faltered, their momentum broken by her unexpected ferocity. Suddenly, a grenade landed near her position. The explosion rocked the alley, throwing debris and dust into the air. Sarah's ears rang, but she shielded her face, determination hardening her resolve. In the chaos, she spotted a gap in the enemy's formation, a narrow path leading back toward the compound. It was risky, but it was the only chance. She sprinted through the debris-strewn alley, bullets whizzing past as she zigzagged toward safety. Her lungs burned, her muscles screamed, but she pushed on, the image of her team waiting spurring her forward. Inside, the SEALs opened fire to suppress the enemy, providing the cover she desperately needed. Sergeant Ramirez led a small squad toward the alley entrance, their combined firepower breaking the siege's grip. Sarah collapsed behind the compound's wall, gasping for breath but alive. The men surrounded her, their expressions a mix of relief and newfound respect. Lieutenant Harris clapped her on the shoulder. "You made that look easy." "We owe you." Commander Davis nodded solemnly. "You took a risk and it paid off. You're one of us now." As the team fortified their position, Sarah allowed herself a moment to reflect. The sharp edge of doubt had been replaced by a fierce confidence. She had stepped beyond the role assigned to her, proving that experience came not just from years in combat, but from the will to act when it mattered most. The siege was far from over, and the night was still thick with danger. But Sarah's shot had shifted the balance, igniting a spark of hope amid the darkness. The team tightened their ranks, ready to fight on together. The night air hung heavy with dust and smoke as the SEALs fortified their tenuous hold on the compound. Outside, the distant crackle of gunfire and muted explosions painted a grim soundtrack to the unfolding siege. Inside, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell sat against a battered wall, the cold metal of her rifle resting across her lap. Her breathing was steady, but her mind was far from calm. Memories flickered behind her eyes, training drills, whispered commands, the sharp report of a rifle echoing in a quiet range. Her thoughts drifted back to the beginning, the countless hours spent perfecting her marksmanship in sterile indoor ranges and open fields, miles away from the unforgiving chaos of battle. In those days, every shot was deliberate, every movement rehearsed. The world narrowed to the sight picture, the gentle squeeze of the trigger, and the satisfying thud of a bullet finding its mark. It was a discipline of precision and control, honed over years of competition. But those days also carried shadows. The pressure to excel, the relentless pursuit of perfection, and the unforgiving glare of judges and spectators. She had thrived on it, yet beneath the surface, a quiet storm brewed. The loss of her brother in a training accident, a moment of distraction, a lapse that no one could undo, had shattered her world. She left the sport then, retreating into the safer confines of intelligence work, where mistakes were mistakes on paper, not on flesh and bone. Now, here she was, far from the controlled environment of the range, surrounded by violence and death. Yet, the same principles guided her: focus, discipline, and mental fortitude. She recalled the breathing exercises that kept her calm, the visualization techniques that sharpened her aim, and the mental rehearsals that prepared her for moments like this. Around her, the SEALs moved with practiced efficiency, their trust in her growing despite the initial doubts. Sergeant Ramirez approached, nodding in approval. "You handled that last engagement well, Mitchell. You're keeping your cool." Sarah glanced up, offering a small, tired smile. "Training helps." He chuckled softly. "I didn't think an analyst could hold their own out here." "You're proving me wrong." She shrugged. "I never thought I'd be here either." The conversation shifted to tactics as the team huddled around the map, planning their next move. Sarah contributed quietly but confidently, suggesting vantage points and firing angles based on her observations. Her unique perspective, melding analytical acumen with sharpshooting skill, began to reshape the team's approach. Lieutenant Harris leaned in, studying her notes. "Your intel matches what we've been seeing. That spot on the rooftop could give us the upper hand." Sarah nodded. "If we can secure it, we can cover the compound's west wall. But the approach is risky, enemy patrols patrol that area regularly." The team debated strategies, weighing risks and benefits. Sarah's input was no longer just tolerated, it was sought after. The dynamic was shifting, the lines between analyst and operator blurring. Later, during a lull in the fighting, Sarah found a moment of solitude. She pulled her jacket tighter against the chill, and gazed at the starless sky beyond the shattered window. Her mind wandered back to her brother, his easy smile, the way he had encouraged her to aim higher, to push harder. The guilt that had haunted her since his death had been a barrier she struggled to overcome. But now, amidst the chaos, she felt a fragile sense of redemption. Her skills, the very ones she had once abandoned, were saving lives. The discipline she had cultivated was not a relic of a past life but a vital tool in the present. Her thoughts were interrupted by the low hum of movement nearby. Jenkins approached, his usual smirk softened by an uncharacteristic respect. "You know," he began, "I never thought I'd say this, but you're not half bad out here." Sarah met his gaze, surprised by the sincerity. "Thanks." He shrugged. "Guess there's more to you than just numbers and charts." She smiled faintly. "There's always more beneath the surface." As the night deepened, the team prepared for another assault. Sarah adjusted her rifle, her fingers steady as she scanned the perimeter. The mental drills she had practiced for years now felt instinctual: breath control, visual focus, muscle memory. When the enemy advanced again, she was ready. Each shot was precise, deliberate, and deadly. Her calm under fire inspired those around her, transforming fear into determination. The firefight stretched into the early hours, a brutal test of endurance and will. But Sarah remained a constant, a steady presence amid the chaos. Her training had not only prepared her for the mechanics of shooting, but had forged the mental resilience necessary to survive. As dawn approached, the first light filtered through the smoke, casting a pale glow over the battered compound. The enemy forces had retreated, their assault blunted but not broken. Commander Davis gathered the team, his gaze resting on Sarah. "You did good out there." "More than good." She nodded, exhaustion tugging at her limbs. "It's about more than just shooting. It's about staying focused when everything's falling apart." He smiled grimly. "That's what keeps us alive." In the quiet moments that followed, Sarah allowed herself to acknowledge the transformation within. The journey from analyst to frontline sharpshooter was not just a change of role, it was a reclaiming of self, a melding of past and present. Her skills, once confined to the safety of a range and the predictability of data, had found new purpose amid the uncertainty of war. The mental discipline she had cultivated was a weapon as vital as any rifle. And as the team prepared for the battles yet to come, Sarah Mitchell stood ready, her aim true, her mind sharp, and her resolve unbroken. The compound was cloaked in an eerie stillness, broken only by the distant rumble of enemy movements retreating into the shadows. The dawn was creeping over the horizon, casting long, pale fingers of light through the shattered windows and scorched walls. Within the command room, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell adjusted her rifle's scope, her eyes scanning the decimated streets beyond. The weight of the night's battle sat heavy on her shoulders, but her focus was razor-sharp. Her mind raced through calculations: distance, wind speed, bullet trajectory, every variable meticulously accounted for. The enemy commander, the architect of the siege, had revealed himself briefly as he coordinated the assault from a makeshift command post atop a ruined building. Taking him out would fracture the enemy's cohesion, shattering their morale and turning the tide. Sarah's breath slowed, muscles tensed, and the world around her faded to a singular point through the lens. She remembered the countless hours of training, the mental discipline that had shaped her into a marksman capable of precision under pressure. The stakes were immeasurably higher now, but the fundamentals remained the same. Outside, the SEALs held the compound's perimeter, their movements cautious yet determined. Commander Davis's voice crackled over the comms. "Hold your positions. Mitchell, you're our eyes and trigger." Sarah nodded, though no one could see her. She settled into position on a rooftop adjoining the compound, the cold concrete pressing against her knees. The ruined city stretched out before her, a labyrinth of shadows and danger. Through the scope, she identified the target, a man dressed in dark fatigues, speaking into a radio amidst a group of fighters. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. Time seemed to slow. She exhaled, steadying her aim. The shot rang out, a sharp crack cutting through the morning air. The commander collapsed instantly, clutching his chest as chaos erupted beneath him. The enemy ranks faltered, confusion rippling through their lines. Shouts replaced orders and the coordinated assault began to crumble. Back at the compound, the SEALs seized the moment. Push forward. Break their formation. Commander Davis commanded, rallying his men. Sarah's teammates exchanged glances, surprise and relief mingling as the tide shifted. Her shot was more than a bullet, it was a declaration, a fracture in the enemy's resolve. As the SEALs advanced, Sarah remained vigilant, scanning for secondary threats. Her heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She was no longer the novice analyst, she was the steady hand guiding the team through the storm. Later, in the temporary calm following the assault, Lieutenant Harris approached her quietly. "That shot, it was perfect. You changed everything." Sarah offered a tired smile. "It's what I was trained to do." He studied her, the respect in his eyes unmistakable. "You've got nerves of steel." She nodded, the weight of the moment settling in. The battle had tested her in ways she never imagined, but she had risen to the challenge. The single, decisive shot had shattered the siege and redefined her place within the team. The command center buzzed with activity as the SEALs regrouped and tended to the wounded. Amidst the chaos, Sarah found a moment to reflect on her journey, from the quiet discipline of the shooting range to the unforgiving battlefield. The skills she once thought confined to competition had become instruments of survival. Commander Davis approached, his gaze steady. "Lieutenant Mitchell, your actions today saved lives. You earned your place here." Sarah met his eyes, a quiet determination burning within. "Thank you, sir. I'm ready for whatever comes next." As the sun climbed higher, the team prepared for the uncertain battles ahead. Sarah's single shot had shattered the enemy's momentum, but the war was far from over. Yet, in that moment, she knew her role had shifted forever, from liability to indispensable sharpshooter, a beacon of precision amid the chaos. The smoke had barely begun to clear when whispers started to circulate through the compound's nerve center. The SEALs, who had initially viewed Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell with thinly veiled skepticism, now eyed her with a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. The sharp crack of that single, perfectly placed shot had shattered more than just the siege leader's defense, it had shattered their preconceived notions about her. Commander Davis sat at the makeshift command table, the map of Al-Mansur spread before him, still flecked with dust and ash. He looked up from the strategic markings to meet Sarah's gaze. "Lieutenant, I need to know everything about you. Who are you really?" Sarah swallowed, the weight of the question pressing down more heavily than the gear on her back. She hesitated, fingers tracing the faded scar along the stock of her rifle, a remnant from a past she'd kept buried. Slowly, she began to unravel her story. "I wasn't always in the field," she admitted quietly. "Before this deployment, I was an intelligence analyst. But I trained as a competitive marksman for years. National circuits, formal competitions, you name it. I was good at it. Too good, maybe." The room seemed to lean in, the usual banter and clatter fading into attentive silence. "I left the sport after a tragedy," she continued, voice barely above a whisper. "My brother was killed in a training accident. It was my fault. I was distracted, and he paid the price. I walked away from everything, the sport, the dreams, the life I'd built. I thought I could never go back." There was a collective intake of breath, the team grappling with the revelation. Sergeant Ramirez exchanged a glance with Jenkins, faces softened by the unexpected vulnerability. Commander Davis broke the silence. "That explains the discipline, the precision under pressure. But it also explains why you kept your distance. You've been fighting your own battle." Sarah nodded. "Exactly. I didn't want to be seen as just another soldier. I wanted to contribute in my own way, behind the scenes, away from the front lines." Lieutenant Harris, who had been silently absorbing the conversation, spoke up. "You were underestimated because you came from a different world. But your skills, your focus, they saved us tonight." Jenkins finally spoke, his usual sarcasm replaced by sincerity. "I'm sorry I doubted you, Mitchell. That shot was the difference between life and death." The team's dynamic subtly shifted in that moment. Sarah was no longer just the outsider analyst, She was a warrior forged by both personal loss and relentless training. Her past was no longer a barrier, but a bridge to understanding. As the day wore on, Sarah found herself at the center of strategic discussions. Her knowledge of ballistics, enemy patterns, and terrain became invaluable. The team began to integrate her insights with their tactical expertise, creating a synergy that had been absent before. In quiet moments, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The ghosts of her past still lingered, but they no longer held her captive. Instead, they fueled her resolve to protect the men who had once doubted her. During a brief lull, Ramirez approached her with a nod of respect. "You've got more fight in you than most of us. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She smiled softly. "I won't." The siege was far from over, but the team's perception had transformed. Where once there had been doubt, there was now trust. Where there had been isolation, there was camaraderie. Sarah's revelation had not only changed how the team viewed her but how they viewed themselves, their ability to adapt, to embrace unexpected strengths in the crucible of war. As night fell once more over Al-Mansur, the compound bristled with renewed determination. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell stood among the SEALs not as an anomaly, but as an indispensable asset, a symbol of resilience born from pain, precision, and unyielding courage. The morning light seeped through the cracked windows of the compound, casting a pale glow over the worn faces of the SEAL team. The air was thick with the residue of battle, dust, sweat, and the lingering tension of uncertainty. Yet beneath the fatigue, something new had taken root, a quiet but unshakable sense of unity. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell moved among the men with a calm confidence that had been absent in days prior, her place in the team no longer questioned but embraced. The shift had been subtle but profound. Where once her suggestions were met with hesitation or outright dismissal, now they were carefully weighed and often acted upon. The team's tactical planning sessions bore this change. Sarah's analytical mind and sharpshooting expertise had become integral to their strategy. In the command room, maps and satellite images lay sprawled across tables, marked with enemy positions and possible routes of engagement. Commander Davis stood at the head of the group, nodding as Sarah outlined a plan to secure a vantage point overlooking the northern approaches. Her voice was steady, her explanations clear and precise. "If we can establish a sniper nest on that rooftop," she said, pointing at the map, "we can cover the main access routes and provide overwatch for the squad movements. It's risky, but it could buy us critical time." Lieutenant Harris exchanged a glance with Ramirez, both men visibly impressed. "It's a solid plan," Harris admitted. "Your intel on enemy patrol patterns is spot on." Sarah acknowledged the compliment with a nod. "Thanks. I've been cross-referencing recent movements with satellite feeds. They're predictable, which is an advantage we can't afford to waste." The team dispersed to prepare for the operation, the air buzzing with a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah found herself coordinating with the communications specialist to ensure their comms would hold during the maneuver, a crucial detail that might have been overlooked before her arrival. As the team moved out, Sarah took her place alongside Sergeant Ramirez and Corporal Jenkins. The streets outside were a maze of rubble and shadow, every corner a potential threat. But the men moved with a newfound trust in each other and in her guidance. The journey to the rooftop was tense but uneventful, their stealth and planning paying off. Once in position, Sarah settled into the sniper's nest, her rifle poised and ready. From this vantage, she scanned the streets below, her keen eyes tracking enemy patrols as they moved in predictable patterns. Minutes stretched into hours as Sarah maintained her watch, communicating quietly with the team below. Her steady presence was a balm to nerves frayed by constant danger. Jenkins, who had once mocked her background, sat nearby, his usual bravado replaced by quiet respect. "You're the real deal, Mitchell," he murmured during a brief lull. She smiled faintly. "Thanks. Means a lot coming from you." The operation unfolded with precision. Guided by Sarah's sharpshooting cover and tactical insights, the SEALs moved through the streets, neutralizing threats and securing key positions. The team's coordination had improved dramatically, each member playing to their strengths in a fluid, dynamic dance of survival. Throughout the mission, Sarah's calm under fire inspired confidence. When an enemy squad attempted to flank their position, she reacted swiftly, taking out the lead attacker with a single, precise shot. The rest faltered and retreated, the tide of battle momentarily turning in their favor. Back at the compound, Commander Davis monitored the operation with a rare smile. "She's changed the game," he remarked to Harris. "We wouldn't have made it this far without her." The day's successes were tempered by the toll of war, the wounded and the weary, but the team's morale was higher than it had been since the siege began. Sarah's quiet leadership and expertise had transformed not just their tactics, but their mindset. That evening, as the team gathered to debrief, Sarah found herself mentoring a young recruit struggling with marksmanship. Patient and encouraging, she shared techniques that had once been her lifeline, instilling in him the same values of focus and resilience. The recruit's eyes lit with hope as he steadied his aim, a reflection of Sarah's own journey from uncertainty to mastery. As night fell over Al-Mansur, the compound stood stronger, its defenders united by more than just duty. Sarah Mitchell had not only earned her place among the SEALs, she had reshaped what it meant to be part of this team. Her story was no longer one of doubt and exclusion, but one of quiet strength and indispensable skill. The battles ahead would test them all, but with her steady hand and sharp eye, the team faced the darkness with renewed courage and resolve. The aftermath of the siege had left the compound battered but intact, the air still thick with the scent of smoke, and the distant echoes of gunfire fading into memory. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell sat quietly in the command tent, her rifle resting at her side as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The room buzzed with activity, plans being drawn, equipment checked, and wounded men tended to, but Sarah found herself reflecting on the path that had brought her here. Commander Davis approached, his face a mixture of weariness and respect. "Lieutenant, the brass wants to offer you a permanent combat role. They've been impressed by your performance." Sarah looked up, the weight of the offer settling over her like a heavy cloak. She had expected recognition, perhaps even promotion, but this was different. It meant a commitment to a life she had once shied away from, a life on the front lines, fully immersed in the chaos she had only recently begun to navigate. "I appreciate the offer, sir," she replied thoughtfully, "but I think I need to contribute in a way that blends my skills. Intelligence work combined with precision shooting, that's where I'm most effective." Davis nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You want to stay on your own terms?" "Exactly," she said. "I'm not looking to be just another soldier in the field. I want to be the asset that bridges the gap between strategy and execution. The eyes and ears, the steady hand when it counts." The commander studied her for a moment before offering a rare, approving smile. "Then that's what we'll do. Your role will be tailored to your strengths. You've earned it." In the days that followed, Sarah's position shifted subtly but significantly. She became a civilian contractor embedded with the SEAL team, a hybrid of analyst and sharpshooter. Her dual expertise allowed her to provide real-time intelligence while offering precise overwatch during operations. The team adapted quickly, appreciating the flexibility and depth her role brought. Lieutenant Harris remarked during a briefing, "Having you on the ground with that level of insight changes how we plan and execute." Sarah's contributions grew beyond the battlefield. She was involved in mission planning, target analysis, and even training sessions, where she shared her unique blend of skills with the team. Her presence challenged traditional notions of combat roles, proving that heroism did not require a uniform, but a commitment to excellence and courage. One afternoon, as she instructed a group of new recruits on marksmanship fundamentals, Sarah caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of a nearby window. The woman staring back was no longer the uncertain analyst who had arrived months before. She was confident, respected, and unwavering. Still, the specter of her past lingered, a reminder of why she chose this path. The loss she had endured fueled her determination to protect others, to ensure that no one else would suffer as she had. During a late-night briefing, Commander Davis approached her with a confidential file. "There's a situation developing that requires your particular skill set. Your insight and precision might be the key." Sarah nodded, the familiar surge of purpose igniting within her. I'm ready. As the team prepared for the next mission, the boundaries between analyst and operator blurred even further. Sarah's journey from liability to legend was a testament to the power of adaptability and the courage to define one's own path. Her choice to remain a civilian contractor was not a retreat, but a strategic decision, one that leveraged her strengths for maximum impact. In the quiet moments before deployment, Sarah packed her gear with practiced efficiency, her thoughts focused on the challenges ahead. She understood that heroism came in many forms, and that her greatest weapon was not just her rifle but her mind and resolve. The SEAL team gathered, ready to face the unknown, their trust in her absolute. Sarah Mitchell was no longer an outsider, but an indispensable force, proof that sometimes, the greatest acts of courage are those born from choice, not circumstance. The compound had settled into a fragile rhythm, a stark contrast to the chaos that had defined the past weeks. The SEALs moved with a renewed sense of purpose, their tactics refined and morale bolstered. At the heart of this transformation was Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, whose steady hand and sharp mind had become a beacon of resilience for the team. In the training yard, Sarah stood beside a young recruit named Daniels, his hands trembling as he gripped a rifle for the first time. The sun beat down mercilessly, but Sarah's focus was unwavering as she guided him through the fundamentals of marksmanship. "Steady your breathing," she instructed softly, demonstrating the technique herself. "Control the trigger squeeze. It's not about strength but finesse." Daniels nodded, his eyes wide with concentration. His first few shots wavered, but with Sarah's patient coaching, they began to find their mark. A small smile broke across his face, a moment of triumph born from guidance and persistence. Nearby, Lieutenant Harris observed, a quiet acknowledgement passing between the two. Sarah was no longer just a sharpshooter or analyst, she was a mentor, shaping the next generation with lessons forged in fire and heartache. Later in the command tent, the team gathered for a debrief. The atmosphere was lighter, the tension eased but vigilance intact. Commander Davis addressed the group, his gaze landing on Sarah. "Your impact has been undeniable," he began. "The tactics we're employing now, the morale we're seeing, it's in no small part due to your knowledge and leadership." Sarah met his eyes, the weight of responsibility balanced by quiet pride. "It's a team effort, sir. Everyone here has stepped up." The conversation shifted to upcoming operations, and Sarah contributed strategic insights that drew nods of agreement. The team's cohesion was evident, barriers had fallen, replaced by mutual respect and shared purpose. As dust settled, Sarah found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here, from an outsider doubted and underestimated to an indispensable pillar of strength. The lessons she imparted to Daniels were echoes of her own hard-won wisdom, resilience, precision, and the courage to embrace one's path. In the silence of the evening, a secure encrypted message pinged on her device. The screen displayed coordinates and a brief note, "New threat emerging. Immediate reconnaissance required. Your expertise essential." Sarah's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the familiar surge of purpose. She glanced around at the team, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of monitors and lanterns. These were the people she trusted, the soldiers she had come to call comrades. Packing her gear swiftly, Sarah prepared to step once more into the unknown. The recruit she had mentored approached, a mixture of awe and determination in his eyes. "Lieutenant," he said quietly, "thank you for everything." She smiled, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Keep your focus. You'll do fine." As the team mobilized, Sarah's thoughts centered on the truth she had come to embody. Heroism was not defined by rank or uniform, but by the courage to rise in the face of darkness, and the will to guide others through it. Her journey was far from over, and the challenges ahead would test them all. But with each step, Sarah Mitchell carried with her the legacy of resilience and the promise of hope, a legacy quietly forged in the crucible of battle and bound by the unbreakable bonds of trust. The quiet hum of the command center was interrupted by the sharp ping of an encrypted message arriving on Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell's secured device. The dim glow of the screen cast shadows across her determined face as she opened the file, revealing coordinates deep within hostile territory and a terse note, "Immediate threat detected. Your unique skills required. Mission parameters enclosed. A familiar surge of adrenaline coursed through her veins, not the reckless rush of fear, but the steady pulse of purpose that had carried her from uncertain analyst to indispensable operative. She folded the device away with practiced calm and rose, her movements precise and unhesitating. Around her, the SEAL team prepared for the next operation. Faces that had once regarded her with doubt now bore expressions of trust and respect. Lieutenant Harris met her gaze with a nod, the unspoken acknowledgement of shared battles and earned camaraderie. "Ready, Mitchell?" he asked quietly. She returned the nod, the weight of their journey settling between them. "Always." As the team assembled, Sarah reflected on the path that had brought her here, the relentless training, the personal sacrifices, the moments of doubt overcome by sheer will. Her journey was not just about survival, but about transformation, shaping herself into the asset the mission demanded. The encrypted message was more than a call to action, it was a testament to her growth, a recognition that her precision and insight were vital to the team's success. The battlefield had revealed her true strength, one born not from rank or tradition, but from unyielding resilience and skill. The team moved out into the shadows of the city, each step a testament to their unity and resolve. Sarah's eyes scanned the terrain, her rifle steady, her mind sharp. In the darkness, she was both guardian and hunter, the steady hand guiding her comrades through uncertainty. As they approached the coordinates, the tension thickened. The mission ahead was perilous, demanding every ounce of their expertise and trust. Sarah's presence was a beacon amid the unknown, a symbol of the unexpected heroes who rise when the world's fate hangs in the balance. In the crucible of conflict, she had shattered expectations and redefined what it meant to be a warrior. Her single shot had changed the course of a siege, but her legacy was etched in every life she touched, every lesson she imparted, and every moment she stood unwavering in the face of danger. The team advanced, shadows blending with purpose, led by a sharpshooter whose journey from liability to legend had inspired them all. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell moved forward, not just as a soldier, but as a symbol of courage, precision, and the enduring power of resilience.